Werewolf here. I want to draw your attention to what is possibly the best Manosphere red pill pickup artist scene in the history of literature by one of the most based writers of his day, William Shakespeare, whose work has endured the test of over 400 years, in no small part because much of what he wrote was relevant to the unchanging human condition. In fact, I think this guy should be credited just as much as a psychologist as he was a writer. And he also has a following with women, so listen up. Now, this scene from Richard III contains many elements that reflect in today's modern dating culture, including toxic relationships, bad boy culture, ego, narcissism, and all of that. Now for some context, Richard is portrayed here by Shakespeare as the villain, and a very Machiavellian character at that. He's calculated who he needs to manipulate and who he needs to kill in order to work his way up to the throne to become king. What he has going against him is his physical appearance, his looks. What he has going for him is his military prowess, but his unique strength that is on display throughout the play is his way with words, combined with his ability to read people on a much more in-depth psychological level and predict what they want and what they will respond to. He can influence people, and his success is impressive. Now, in this scene, it's Act 1, Scene 2, we see a conversation between Richard and Lady Anne, who he wants to marry in order to move up the line of succession. This scene takes place at the funeral of the husband and father-in-law, both whom Richard has already murdered. So Shakespeare has set up a scene that's seemingly impossible for Richard. So how does he get out of this? Now remember, in The Art of the Deal, the most important tenet to winning a negotiation is to be able to walk away from that deal. Well, Shakespeare took it to an even higher level than that. See, Lady Anne says that she wishes Richard dead. Richard says that he doesn't want to live without her. And then he keeps her to her word. He hands her a sword and essentially tells her to kill him then and there if she will not marry him. Now, both seemingly get what they said they just wanted, but as Lady Anne stands there with the sword pointed at Richard's heart, he praises her beauty and character and says that it was these qualities in her that caused him to have to kill her husband and also her father-in-law for some reason. Lady Anne lowers the sword and maintains that she still wishes Richard dead, but that she will not be the executioner. And by the end of this scene, Richard has given her a ring, and she has agreed to meet with him at a later point for some potential beginning of a courtship. Now, I found the ending to this somewhat hard to believe, but keep in mind that this has been subject to the judgment and praise of theater critics, filmmakers like Laurence Olivier, and all sorts of types. A lot of these theater people look for all sorts of reasons to criticize something, so the reason that they praise this 400 years later definitely says something about the psychological workings of the scene that Shakespeare tapped into. Now, here are a few interpretations of this scene. Richard puts Anne in a situation where she actually has to take action. She can't just talk about it. But Richard knows that, like many of us, actually murdering someone is a very difficult thing to do on a psychological level, and he's confident that Anne is not going to do this. But she says, of course, she would agree to it if someone else were to be the actual executioner to do her, so she could live vicariously through someone else's risk and turmoil. There's also the appeal to ego here, of course. And Richard in effect, convinces her that the two deaths are, in a way, her fault. Again, you have the narcissism element, probably some other psychological elements in here. Again, if you want to check the scene out, it's Act 1, Scene 2, but I highly recommend the entire play. There's a lot more interesting elements in it, and especially the final words at the end. It's definitely worth interpretation. Now, of course, I'm not endorsing this behavior by any means, and I do not recommend it, but remember, in The Art of the Deal, the most important tenet of that, and also a lot of other negotiation books and how to influence people books, is to be willing to walk away from the deal. Well, Richard has just raised the stakes to a much higher level, well beyond that. But I suggest you read it, or see the play, or one of the movies, and see if there's anything else that you notice that maybe I haven't brought up here. And I wanted to get to this first, before some Manosphere guru finds this and mines this for his own material for one of his podcasts. Like I said in my previous video on the Manosphere, I think in general, it's a great idea. There's a lot I like about it. I watch a lot of these videos, but I think a lot of these guys are fake. They're just leading you down a narrow, tunnel-visioned view of cynicism, and you're going to wake up from that. If you don't question these guys, you're going to wake up from that when it's too late. Well, thank you for watching. If you want to see more content like this, be sure to subscribe. I want to hear from your comments. Leave a like. And until next time, life, liberty, and the pursuit of